I'm Angie, Momma Badger, and this is
The Badger.
And we're the Badgers, and we run our credit card business, Badgers Business Solutions, and our clients are, a lot of them are biker owners, and so we actually just took an interview of one of our clients who owns a business called Vigilante Metalworks, and so I invite you to take a look and see who he is, what he does, what he's all about, some great stories, how he got started, how he started a business, and so enjoy.
See ya.
Walking into Vigilante Metalworks, new location. Come meet Bonner. I'm gonna take you straight to the back to start off with because he is back there.
Yeah, he's got his own garage door to come and go out of there, and way better setup than the old place out on the street. So
Bigger.
yeah,
Sure.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Got lots of room to do stuff now.
So who's your mechanic?
His name's Jesse Boggs.
How'd you meet him?
Jesse's motorcycle repair. He showed up at the shop one day and told me he was a mechanic and was looking for some work. And I said, if you can make that piece of shit run right there, I'll have more for you.
And I am with Bonner, and he's the owner of Vigilante Metalworks here in Cape Coral, Florida. Tell them your address so they know your address.
It's 705 Pondella Road, Unit F. We got a big old 705 out front. You can't miss it. Look for the bikes out front.
So a lot of you are seeing this from who knows where, which is awesome because I want you to know who our clients are and who we deal with all the time and send business to here locally. And I want him to give you some background on who he is, what he does, and your first motorcycle and any stories that you have. So let's start from the beginning.
Well, I reckon my very beginning of two wheels was my pa had a one-car garage in Red Bank, Tennessee, and he had a little 12-inch bicycle, and he taught me how to pop wheelies on a 2x6 in his garage. And then I learned how to get some air on the speed bumps next to the track at the local high school. He'd go jog. He was an athletic alcoholic, as I guess I would call it. I don't know, but he would stay in shape while drinking a beer. And I'd, jump some speed bumps. That was a good time. And then my stepdad took over and got me into dirt bikes and taught me how to catch some air on those things. And
How old were you when you were doing
I don't know, like that tall. As a PW50, I was a little guy, And then I got into BMX racing and turned pro doing that. And then
So what time frame were you doing the pro stuff?
late teens, early 20s.
And where was that at? Was that here in Florida?
Well, I would travel the country to go to nationals, and I traveled the state for statewide events and different stuff like that. But yeah, I lived in Tampa for a while till I ran away from home. That's how I ended up in Cape Coral, was sleeping on somebody's floor till I was old enough to get my first shitty apartment.
All right, so this place was a dream or something you had in mind, getting this place.
Yeah, absolutely. It was. It's grown to be a lot closer to the dream I had in the beginning of being a one-stop motorcycle shop, being fabricator, designer. I'd work with budgets with everyone as well. Whether they want a budget bobber or a full-blown build, or just some custom parts to make what they got a little bit cooler. And then I took Jesse in, Jesse's motorcycle repair. So now we have a mechanic shop built into my fabrication shop. I got an awesome seat upholstery guy now to cover up the pans I do. I've got good painters. I've got a good powder coater. So I've got the arsenal required to have the dream come true. The place that I wanted in the beginning is here.
Now?
Yeah, I call her my wife because I already gave her the ring. I did my job.
Congratulations. That's awesome. She's one sexy hot mama.
Yes.
So you'll see around here.
He's doing the due diligence
Yeah.
of showing the poster off.
So
Yeah,
she models and she's got a background, right?
Yeah, she's been modeling for a long time now, and you know, she's fairly responsible for us getting a full page in Cycle Source in November, and they got a poster of her ass in Gnarly Magazine this month. You know, there it is.
Her ass on your bike, so.
Well, it's blurred out in the background. My bike is. They're focusing on the ass in the poster, but sex sells, as they say. So I get it.
Whatever gets
Yeah.
the attention.
My name's at the bottom, and the bike's a blur in the back. You know, maybe that'll. Oh, what's that back there? Maybe they'll say. I don't know, but.
All right.
I think
so
it's more like, did anybody see a bike in that picture?
once a month, you have everybody meet up here and do a ride. So
Yeah, it's
not-
our monthly ride we do. Been doing it for a while. Give away stuff for the first 3 to show up. Just kind of some interest, trying to gain some.
which is
at
stuff
least.
from
Lowbrow Customs supplied me with a bunch of swag to give out.
What's the coolest bike you ever built and put together?
Coolest bike I ever built?
Yeah, one that you're the most proud of.
It's hard to say because I've got everyone's bike that I build for them is their dream. You know what I mean? And I take a lot of pride in being able to make the bike that you dreamt of a reality for you. Oh, that's not coffee yet.
Give it a minute. Still working on the countdown.
Well, it used my bike would be pissed if I didn't tell her that she was my favorite. So I just got my tins back from Painted by Bryson. He just did a killer job with her. I believe the paint job she's going to die in. That's it's my final, like, here's my bike that I ride. You know, it's every couple of months you get bored and you do something different to it, but at least I do, you know. But this time I think it's a finished product finally. I had ideas. I wasn't afraid anymore to sign on the dotted line. I was ready for it, you know. And so, as soon as I got back home, I guess my passion for motorcycles came from my father being a biker, and you know, my music project, Chattanooga Bastard, is a tribute to kind of the fact that I'm from Chattanooga, and you know, I'm a bastard, I guess. It's pretty self-explanatory, the title of my project, but the song I wrote about that was about my relationship with my dad when I was a kid, and I said, remember me when I was young, you were my hero, I was your number one. Like, we were tight. Every summer when I was a kid, I wanted to go hang out with Dad, you know what I mean? And he had his motorcycle in the garage, and he would take me on rides up and down the street on it, and I thought that was really cool. And when I got a little bit older, when my mom moved me to Florida with my stepdad, I was in tow because I was a kid still. I blamed a lot of my dad not being around on him. Got a little older, I'd say mid-teens, I started realizing that it's not all his fault. It's a little bit my mom's fault too, I reckon, and my stepdad, and well, you know, whoever's in charge of whatever there. But so I started kind of remembering the good times that I had with Dad, and then when my first wife-to-be came around, she told me if I ever got a motorcycle, she would divorce me. We weren't even married yet, and I was already, you know, throwing a red flag in on that, and I'm like, we'll see. Mm-hmm. So anywho, about a month before our wedding, I get a phone call, because I had told her, I said, hey, after the honeymoon and all that shit, I'm gonna go up and knock on my dad's door, and, you know, hey, remember me when I was young, you know, let's offer him the opportunity to have another relationship with me, you know what I mean? And that was my plan. And I get the phone call a month before our wedding that he had committed suicide. And so, well, hell, you know, I can't fucking go do that, I guess. And so I, unfortunately, am forever will have in the back of my mind, you know, what if I showed up a month ago, you know, what if that could have been a new lease on, you know, life, you know, an opportunity to, you know, hang out with you know, me and him, you know, old chums. But, you know, so that fucked me up pretty bad. And they say through thick and thin, when you stand up there, and you know, we started it off pretty thin right away because I was in a pretty bad place. I didn't know how to deal with it because I could never go do what I wanted to do now. And so, you know, we were young and dumb and shouldn't have been getting married anyway. And she didn't know how to deal with me not knowing how to deal with the whole thing. So instead of telling me goodbye, she said, I'm going to go stay with my mom for a little while. And so I said, huh? What does that mean? She said, I don't know. I wrote a song about that too. It's called Fork in the Road. Anyways, she told me, I don't know about everything. Do you still love me? Are we still married? Are you ever coming back? You know, what's the deal? So I lived in a little bit of, you know, I was bummed out, I guess depressed is what you'd call it. But I would go to work and come home and sit on the couch and stare at the wall until it was time to go to bed, you know what I mean? For a while I did that, not knowing what to do next. And then being straight edge my whole youth, because my dad was an alcoholic and I blamed it on him being an alcoholic, not being a part of my life. You know, part of my depth of blaming my mom too was that, you know, I've hated this guy alcohol my whole life, but I ain't never met him. So I decided one Friday night that I should go out and get drunk. And so I called my buddy up that he was kind of a homeboy and he liked going out to the clubs with his girl and getting VIP and all that shit. So I was like, hey, you going out to the club tonight? And he said, yeah. So I told him I'm gonna come with him if he didn't mind. So I went out and I got good and drunk for the first time ever. And when I woke up on his floor the next morning, I didn't have a cell phone, so I got on his computer and I mapped the closest motorcycle shop because in my drunken stupor I had made some decisions that fuck her. She told me if I ever bought a motorcycle, she would divorce me. And there's this fella that I wanted to go hang out with that he's dead. I can't do that anymore. The least I could do is, you know, at least go experience what his life was like, you know what I mean? And maybe spiritually he'll be there or whatever. I don't know if I still believe in spirituality, however you fucking say that word, but you know, I guess I do a little bit at this point. This whole fucking place is kind of me hanging out with my dad. So what I did was I went and got me a motorcycle. Still the same bike I ride today. It's my bottom bitch, as they say, kids say. But or the pimps say, I guess, I don't know. But anyways, you know, that's the one that's in Cycle Source now. Was the very first bike I ever bought. And my first trip was down to the Miller Ale House to get some chicken nachos with my friends. And then after that, I went down to the courthouse and bought me some divorce papers. And I hand-delivered them, being sure to leave my helmet on to make it clear that I was on a motorcycle. And as soon as her mother stubbornly got her to come to the door, I handed her the papers and smiled at her, and I said, "You promised." And so here we are. You know,
Yeah.
Well, at the time I was a fabricator at a sign shop. I was their head fabricator, building all of their monuments and everything for them. And so now that I'm a motorcycle enthusiast who is also a fabricator, my lunch breaks were when I fabricated motorcycle stuff, you know, and so I almost called it lunch break customs because that was kind of when I was doing stuff. But anyways,
Vigilante's cooler.
yeah, way cooler. And there's a story behind that name too. But so I at the time I was always terrified of business ownership, of the paperwork involved, taxes. You know, I got to pay my quarterly taxes too, by the way, but I got to get that taken care of. I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I'm doing it, I guess. That's what you're supposed to do. So I've made it this far. I guess I'm doing something at least half-assed right. But anywho, I was terrified of this whole business thing. I kept getting into. I started a clothing company. I started to research and get into owning a bicycle shop because I worked in that industry for a while. And every time I got to that point where it was time to turn the page and sign on the dotted line, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just work for somebody. I'll get my paycheck and I'll go home and I'll do whatever I want. And that works out, you know. But because I was just like, you know, I even tried to like. I don't know where the fuck to go to get this paperwork that says I'm a business owner at the time, you know. Back then I didn't even have a cell phone, much less my own laptop and all the other technological shit that exists now. But
So what advice would you give to somebody that's wanting to open their own place? What did you learn and look back on, and maybe somebody that they should have talked to to get them started? Or
you just got to do it. That's it. You just can't be afraid to do it, because the next part of my story is the reason I wasn't afraid to do it anymore was, you know, I guess my dad dying got me into riding motorcycles, and then me dying got me into owning my own business. You know, 6-7 years ago now, I went up to this car show, Bulletproof, up in Ocala, and nearby is this really cool BMX spot that had some really cool jumps, and they just had a big event coming up, so they had these pretty gnarly jumps set up for that. And I told my friends, I was like, we gotta go check that out. Well, long story short, we checked out the car show. We went over there to do that, and after riding all of the jumps and everything that are always there, I said, all right, let's go check out that new stuff they built out in the dried lake bed. And so that's the last I remember, but we went out there to check this jump out, and there was a pretty big drop to a downslope to catch some speed for this big double. It's all made out of lime rock, so it might as well be cement. And I was told that after I hit this down drop to catch speed, I wanted to make sure I cleared it, so I took a few more pedals to get as much speed as I could for this big jump. And come to find out, they may have designed that drop to give you enough speed for that jump already. So I overshot it and landed on my face instead of my bike, and ended up with massive brain injury, broke every bone in my face. I don't have all these fucking teeth from here to here were gone. This one, that one right there fell out too with the one next to it, and they were dangling by the arteries, so they put them back in thinking maybe they'd save them, but the one hurt all the time. So I told the dentist, instead of maybe saving it for $1,000 and a root canal, let's definitely make it stop hurting, just yank the fucking thing out. Because I already need 14 fake teeth, let's make it 15. You know, what's the difference? So anyways, you know, I broke my upper back, so I lived in a body cast for a while. Massive brain injury made me exhausted for well over a year, just day in and day out, tired at 100% of the time. So the short version of that story is I got fat as fuck, and I weighed a lot. You know, I gained almost 100 pounds of weight from in a body cast, sitting doing nothing, being exhausted, eating shit food. And then when the brain surgeon gave me a checkup on my what they had done to my brain, he told me that the swelling had gone down enough for me to start drinking again. So that's what I did. As I started like, well, hell, I'm a fat fucking crippled motherfucker. I might as well get drunk about it. So that's what I did for a while. And one morning I was giving my wife to be a pep talk about life. You know, she was stressed about money, like most people are most of the time. And, you know, my outlook on life's a lot different now. And I'm just like, you know what we do next month? If we ain't got money to pay the bills, we don't pay them. You know what I mean? We're not gonna die.
Right.
It's not gonna be the end of the world. We'll figure it out. You know, we'll
figure it out.
If fucking, you know, even if everything we own gets taken away from us, we still got our lives to live. So there's a lot to be said for that. Obviously, my new going thing to say is, you know what they say, you only die twice. So now I'm on my second round. I gotta get around and get all the things I want to do. So first thing I did after spending 6 months in, I almost called it a hotel. The hospital I was in for 6 months.
You were literally in the hospital for 6 months.
Yeah, I was in a coma for most of it. I believe I was for a few months, I was in a coma by myself. I did it all by myself. And then they had to induce me in coma because they weren't done fixing me yet. And they used the word if a lot with the folks that were there to visit with me. They said, if he wakes up, he's going to have to learn how to walk again. If he, you know, that's a short word, but it's fucking heavy. You know what I mean? When it comes to if you're gonna live or die, you know what I mean? And that's my body hit reset, and luckily they hired one of the better brain surgeons that there was on the East Coast to come down, and you know, I still remember most of my friends and how to do what I do for a living. They had to hire a security guard for my hotel room. They had to hire a security guard to hang out in my room because I didn't want to be there, supposedly. I'd be up and I would yank all the tubes out of me. I had the one in my neck, whatever that one does, and the ones in my arm, all that shit. And they'd find me looking under my bed. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Where the fuck is my welder?" I was looking for my shit. I gotta get back to work. I'm a workhorse. I don't know anything else. You know, that's what I want to do is work. So I was up looking for it, and then they'd find me like, you know, Day of the Dead. They'd find me on the other side of the hospital in a body cast, fucking with probably goo pouring out of me because I pulled all the shit out of me to go. But they'd find me looking for the exit signs, but I was too stoned on their fucking medicine to know what the fuck I was doing. But you know, that's it. I was just zombied out, and I wanted the fuck out of there. So I wanted to get back to work. I had ideas. I wasn't afraid anymore to sign on the dotted line. I was ready for it, you know. And so as soon as I got back home, first thing I did was go on, here's a shameless plug for you, LegalZoom.com. And I signed up for their gold package. You know, here, you guys do all the fucking paperwork that I don't want to do, and I got on a payment plan, and they set me up as an LLC, and gave me my EIN number and all that other shit that I don't necessarily care too much about, but you know what I mean. You gotta have it. So
Great.
You know, I proudly add LLC to the end of my name that I came up with because it's a legitimate business, licensed and insured. You know what I mean? I'm doing it all legit as.